Hey guys, what is going on? Thanks so much for watching the channel. Matt Smith here as always. Before we get going, like and subscribe. You know the drill. Helps me out a ton, and I really appreciate it. Well, just got back from Coach Prime's presser, and the great news is he is cancer free. Obviously, the big news, we knew there was some sort of mysterious health issue going on there, but unfortunately, we found out that he had a cancerous tumor in his bladder, and that was discovered in April, it sounds like, due to imaging. And about a month later, they had made the decision to opt not for some sort of chemotherapy treatment, which would have required him, I believe he said, 3 times a week for a long time. I can't remember the exact month or timeline the doctor said, but it was going to be for a while. And that's just, first of all, putting your body through that is just brutal. I mean, all of this is brutal, but that those treatments with the type of cancer that it was and how aggressive it can metastasize. Essentially, she said that once it metastasizes, you've got about a 10% chance of recovery and a significant chance that it will come back either way. So they made the decision to go ahead and remove his bladder, which is obviously, considering everything he's been through with or without that stuff, just in addition to it, I believe he said today 14 surgeries since 2021 they had. So that is so much to put your body through. The man is a warrior. No one can take that from him. Incredible that they recognized it in the first place because they weren't looking for it, right? It was a checkup for something related to his vascular issues in his legs, right? He's dealt with blood clots in the past, I believe, and so that pops up on there. They went for more testing and they found it. So look, he has been through the absolute ringer, and certainly going through that with being such a public personality, considering the summer that they had, right, with the NFL draft. And he talked about that, how when he was at home during the NFL draft, he was also dealing with the fact that he was about to have a major surgery, and the trajectory of his life could have been changed, or will change no matter what. So he's had a lot going on, and definitely incredible that he pulled through. And you have to give so much credit to the oncology team there at Anschutz. They really took care of him, and obviously his trainer Lauren, she was there every step of the way. So as was Bucky, he said. So look, he has a great support system, and the most important news is that he is cancer free, which is incredible. And we knew something serious was going on over the summer. We didn't want to speculate, and everyone really gave him his privacy. He was crediting his team today for how well they did not to leak it, and that's true. I mean, behind the scenes, there was some mumblings that maybe something was going on, but nothing specific at all like this. Certainly not from any of my sources, but it wasn't like I pried either. None of us did. We really all wanted to give him his privacy on this one, as you do with health issues. And the other thing I'll say is that it's not your average bear who has to have a significant health problem and then go up and have a press conference about it. It made me slightly uncomfortable only because I feel very weird asking in a press conference setting somebody's doctor about them while they're sitting right there. So I refrained from asking everything. I feel like a lot of people covered a lot of the topics. Certainly, I would say I would have some other questions about what his life will look like moving forward, because I don't envy, any part of the challenges on the day-to-day simple things that he's got to do, right? He was talking about how he's more or less incontinent right now and can't control his bladder. So he's, wearing adult diapers right now, and they'll probably have a porta potty on the sideline because he never knows. He said the first thing that happens when he wakes up is to make sure he didn't wet himself, right? So a ton of credit to him, because I think there is a stigma, especially in the football world, that you don't want to be vulnerable and that you got to tough things out and man it up. And, he totally, for lack of a better phrase, really invited everybody in the living room, because that's a private matter. And I know he's the highest paid public employee in the state of Colorado. And sure, some explanation at some point was probably needed, but he certainly didn't have to do that. And to be a champion of it and to own it, and to urge everyone else to get tested. Look, he handles this the right way, as he does everything. And at least most everything, he's human, right? The best that he possibly can, especially considering how emotional this was and how hard this was. He definitely had to stop himself from, tearing up, as anybody would. I mean, it's heavy, heavy stuff, okay? And he's a remarkable human being. He is, to be able to tough all this stuff out, right? It certainly, we've all in some way, shape, or form have been touched by cancer. My dad is a two-time cancer survivor, so I've certainly seen it up close and personal. It's scary stuff, right? Especially when it's you or in the immediate family, and certainly for anybody. So it's just a really, really nice feeling to know that he found his way through that, because as he acknowledged, that press conference today could have been for a different reason. I mean, if he doesn't get that testing done and they don't figure it out fast enough and it starts to metastasize, it's entirely different conversation. So, yeah, I today really wasn't a day for football. I certainly, there's tons of football stuff that I have, but today was not a day for that. Today was a day for just to really, even as a media member, we clap for him, and that was probably the most comfortable I've ever felt clapping at a press conference. There's been a couple of scenarios that have arisen since he's taken over, where media members have been kind of openly cheering, and as an objective person, I feel like that's a little bit over the line sometimes, just from a journalistic perspective. But we're talking about somebody beating bladder cancer here, that I was ready to clap right away. So it it was just great to see. It was great to see. So what it looks like moving forward, I think it's starting to get back to normalcy. He was asked if he was going to rely on, his coaches more now, and he was like, "Rely on them. I'm here. I'm ready to go." And I kind of rolled my eyes when I heard that question. The better question would have been, how much did you rely on them over the summer, and who stepped up? And do you feel vindicated in some of your hires based upon the fact that you did actually have to lean on them just a little bit more over the summer? As he said, he lamented the fact that he couldn't be here, training the guys, coaching the guys, having his eyes on everything over the summer. Of course he did. I mean, that sucks. He loves it here. I know a lot of people nationally really, still rebuff that, but he does. Boulder's a really great place. CU's a great place. I always say this, but his bedroom in his office, and he sleeps there most nights. At least I think he did. I don't know how that situation is going to play out. I imagine they'll probably retrofit, whatever he needs in his office. But the point is that he's got the best view in Boulder right there, right out of his bedroom window. I mean, that's the truth. So the whole atmosphere up there, everybody leaves you alone. Everybody's really respectful. This is a really great place to live in general. So, not that it isn't in Texas, and not that he doesn't love his fishing, and it's just different, right? This is where he's working. This is his job. We all need purpose, especially for, and I struggle with this too in my own life. I'm dealing with my own, medical stuff, which, I mean, looks like, looks like I stubbed my toe compared to what he's had to go through. However, there are tons of things that I would like to do and be active, but right now, because of some things that I'm going through, I just can't. And that's been the case for a couple of years. And mentally, that's trying. It's really hard. It's a day-to-day thing, and you do the best you can, and some days you do better than others, and you just gotta not beat yourself up about it and do what you can to try and get back. But it's hard, especially, and this is just my own perspective, somebody who was, playing golf 4 or 5 days a week, or at the driving range, or playing softball or football or basketball or baseball or whatever it was, even, continuing into my, mid to late 20s. The fact that I can't do any of that stuff right now, that's a challenge. And I can only imagine, and I've thought about this now for a while, not just over the summer, but dating back, I don't know, year or so, maybe even since Coach Prime got here, really, not just a year or so. But the fact that he was one of the greatest athletes in American sports history, and obviously with his situation with his foot, not being able to do a lot of that stuff, I can't imagine being at that level of an athlete and then having some of that taken away. So mentally, I've always had empathy and sympathy for the fact that you would never know that a lot of that stuff even affects him. And I'm sure it does, because as a human being, how could it not? And he even brought it up today. And look, there's going to be a lot of this for him that is a learning process. And, it's not going to be easy. And he knows he still has a very long road ahead. But at the same time, I hope that he's through the worst of this now. I genuinely hope and I pray that he is. And I think it's going to be really good medicine, excuse me, for him to get back to football. I do. I think coaching is going to be a huge help, because we all need distractions, especially when you're going through some of that stuff. And yeah, you got to make sure you're dealing with it. But and I'd like to take my own advice more than I probably do when I say this, but you've got to have that good balance in your life. And so I think being in Boulder is going to end up being a really good thing for him, just, well-being wise. And we'll see how the season plays out. It obviously makes sense why maybe they didn't land some of the recruits, maybe that came in on visits, or maybe otherwise would have. You don't know when someone's dealing with a situation like that, especially because there's been so much speculation from the outside that after Shador and Travis left, what would he have left here? And I could see how a parent, a parent of a prospect who's being courted by umpteen schools around the country and having, hundreds of thousands of dollars thrown at them in check form, and just saying, hey, you want this or not, right? You got to make sure that the support system is in place for your own son. And so I imagine you really want to be able to meet the coach, look the coach up and down, and make sure the coach is good. And I think that part of that probably hampered them a little bit in the spring transfer portal. But either way, I am really looking forward to getting back to football now, as I know everybody is. And I'm just very grateful that Deion Sanders is okay, because obviously he means so much to so many people. And one thing that I've really learned about him, and maybe not learned about him, but had the opportunity to experience it firsthand over these last, 2+ years now, that his level of fame and being 90s famous hits different. There was a mystique to it where you weren't constantly inundated with social media posts and knew what someone was doing at all times, or there weren't people out, wherever, with computers and cameras in their pockets. That didn't used to be how it was. And I think because we only experience celebrities or stars through television, radio, or print, those three formats, right? There was more allure to it. So maybe you didn't see him as much, but when you did, you knew him because they were such a big personality, and it was such a big event. And now I feel like, because of the access that, the internet has really generated for everything and everyone, it's a little bit different. Sometimes it's oversaturated and there's not as much, like I said, I think the word is mystique around celebrities and athletes. And look, I mean, you just watching the way that people react to him and have reacted to him, it's different than a lot of celebrities. And not to be that guy, but I've been around a lot of really successful professional athletes in my time, and I've never seen anybody really get, maybe on a couple of occasions, but as far as the way that people react to him and how he inspires people and the reaction that he draws, whether it's positive or negative, right? He's a very polarizing figure. So it's been fascinating as a sociological experiment to watch that unfold. So I know that, just how much he means to so many people. So look, it's a great thing that he's healthy. I know I saw the team all posting, because he didn't tell them either, and really he kept this one under his hat until he knew he was out of the woods on this thing, and that was the right way to play it. So he also said he was very cognizant of not really bringing too much up around Shador and Shiloh, so that they could focus on football, which I just saw today. First day in pads for Browns practice. Shador 9 for 9, 2 touchdowns. Just give him a chance, man. Just give him a fair shot. and then let the chips fall where they may. But they haven't yet. And today, I don't even think he got any reps with the ones in 11 on 11, even without Kenny Pickett at practice. So we'll see what happens there. But Kenny Pickett's hamstring injury, I don't know, it might take him out of the race. In the meantime, which is big news for Shadur, and now you just got to take advantage of all the opportunities, whatever they look like, and make it undeniable. That's all he can do. He can only control what he can control, and whether or not he wins the job, his focus has just got to be making the team and getting better every single day because it's complicated. You can't do it all at once. Rome wasn't built in a day, and when you're dealing with incompetent leadership and ownership and a front office, quite frankly, that's even harder to do. So you just have to focus on number one, and that was good. That was some good intuition and wisdom from Coach Prime to, I think, let those two really just dial in on football, which obviously takes some self-sacrifice because you need support as a human being, and even though you're the dad, you still need love, and so that's why I think he really appreciated having Bucky there and Lauren there, and obviously the cavalcade of friends. He's got such an incredible social network that he has so many people come down and spend time with him down at a Prime Ranch down there in Texas. And so I know he had, and he also gave a big shout out to Randy Moss and his family, which I thought was really cool. Randy, growing up, was my favorite player, man. Being in Chicago when I grew up, the Bears were just awful. And so, Bear games would be over early. So the NFC North was Favre, and it was Barry Sanders, and it was Randy Moss. When Randy hit the scene, man, that was my dude. But and Randy just went through cancer as well, and if memory serves, I believe that he's on the other side of his journey, or at least certainly not in the thick of it anymore, which is obviously amazing news in and of itself. And he said he hopes that Randy can get out here for a game this year, which I'd love to see again. Randy's, I mean, he's a hero to me. So, anyway, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Just wanted to give my reaction to the news that Coach Prime is cancer free and the 2025 season will be moving forward business as usual, except for maybe a few more potty breaks. That's life, right? And good for him for being vulnerable. And as I was saying earlier, there's a stigma around men specifically, but especially men in sports that, you got to be tough and you can't show weakness. But him championing it, third time's a charm on that one, I think is important because he does have such an influence over a lot of people. And he's right that because of his press conference, there will be people that get screened for this and other things, which, otherwise they may not have done. So any positive impact and any way he can grow his influence, I think this is another opportunity for that, and he sees it. And as he said, he's God's chosen one. So, you know, and you look at his life, and in good ways and bad. And he was talking about something today that I'll end with that I think is important because he talked about the journey, and he talked about how um essentially the concept he was bringing up, and I don't remember the words he was using, but the way I like to phrase it is contrast, because in life you can't truly appreciate the good without some of the other side to it, because if it was always good, you'd never really have that full appreciation for it, and if it was always bad, you'd think that it could never get any worse, but it can. And it can also get a lot better. So the contrast and finding the lessons in your own life, right? And what does the universe present to you around every corner? And sometimes we're supposed to learn those lessons immediately. And sometimes those lessons don't become clear until later, as long as you're looking and paying attention. And, one thing that whatever terminology, spiritually, religiously you want to use, but as long as you remain open to what you're presented with and aware, then I think you've got a pretty good leg up on everything else. So, look, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thanks so much. We'll have more out, I'm sure, here later this week. Got a couple of practices coming up where we can finally start talking about some football, and I'm looking forward to it. In the meantime, I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. You know the drill, and we'll talk to you soon.